Hey kids, it's Blackjack with 396 Guitars. We have a 1960 reissue Les Paul Classic. Pretty instrument. We're doing a restring, setup, cleanup. Let's get to work. And, beautiful example of a Les Paul. Seems to be Gibson Day. I just did an SG. Same client. He brought me several guitars. The only request he had was, oh, I like the patina on that. Don't move that. Don't change that, because the story behind it is I worked on one of his other Les Pauls and his pickup covers were green, and I took the time to clean them and polish them, and I was patting myself on the back, and he was not happy about it. So I know now that what this client likes is the patina. Now, we're going to ignore that when it comes to the frets, because we're going to clean those up, obviously. Let's just check where we're starting. First fret, capo, hold at the body joint, 7th fret. I'm going to tell you it's probably a little loose. It's probably a little loose. I think there's too much neck relief in this thing. For a Les Paul, I'm going to say it's too much neck relief. I want to address that. It's already tuned up to pitch, and I believe we're putting the same gauge strings on, so I think what we're going to do is address it. And that should do it. And judging by the fact that it went sharp, I'm going to think we did get it. Yup. Neck relief is necessary, but too much is not a good thing. I like that better. It's kissing 12 thousandths. And generally speaking, I find that Les Pauls want to be, Gibsons in general want to be a little straighter than, say, a Fender, but that's, you know, each instrument is different. His SG that I just did is bone flat and super close action, and it nary a buzz on anywhere, and that's what that instrument will bear. This one we're starting there, and let's see where our string action is to start. It's, I would say, high. I would say it's pretty high. It's over 5/64 there and perfect there. It's just showing 4/64 on the treble side. So we're going to drop the bass side down a bit, and then recheck it after we restring and go through the setup on it. I don't know. Got just enough. Just enough. So far, pretty good. He hasn't played the instrument in a long time. All right, we got a wonky three-way switch. We're going to address that right now. And the right way to tighten these up. Get it centered, get it square where it's supposed to be. Take the back off so that you can hold the switch. And then tighten it with a spanner wrench on the other side. So it's a little off center. I want it to turn slightly. Perfect. So what I want to do, where's my spanner wrench? Now you hold it and snug it up. And if you just start tightening on that keeper nut there, the retainer nut, all it's going to do is turn the switch in the back. I like that. That looks really good. And now it's nice and snug. It's all part of a setup. Pay attention to these little details. Pay attention to the little details, and you won't be disappointed with the end result. You follow? I like this guitar. Nice. Looks like mahogany. Who knows? I'm not a woodworker. I think after all these years, I'd know what guitars were used, what kind of material. You guys can argue that. I want to check this just to make sure it's not all boogered in. I didn't plug it into an amp, but as standard operating procedure, I like to spray the pots, especially if a guitar has been sitting for a long while without being used, which is the case with this one. It's just good preventive medicine. Everything looks original. Let's just give it a little shot. A little dab will do you. You don't need to get overzealous with this stuff. Jack is nice and tight. And that's all it takes. And that's all it takes. We'll get to the meat of it here in a few minutes. I think we're just going to de-string it, clean it up, get the frets polished and oil the board. And then I will come back for restring and final setup. It is a little bit grungy and dirty. I'm going to spend a little extra time cleaning it. And I'm not going to put that on the video. Cleaning is cleaning. Yeah, it's pretty dirty. Some of this stuff looks like it'll come right off. Some of it won't. Don't know. Don't know what's been through in its life. Like that, I like that, I like that. Let's just hear and make sure everything is working right. Good. Perfect. I like that. Doesn't hurt to check. It only takes a second. And you want to go through that now, and something's not working, do that before you get it all cleaned up and strung up, because if you're pulling electronics out, you don't want to do it at the end. Make sure you identify those problems early. Everything's pretty tight. That's a little loose. Output jack is nice and tight. Yeah, I'm going to de-string it. What size strings? I'm putting 10s on it. There are 10s on, so we should be good. Well, should be good. So I will return after I de-string it. We're going to wipe it all down. I'm going to clean up the frets, oil the fretboard, and then we'll come back for restring and setup. Today I'm going to show you how to restring a Gibson Les Paul. I'm going to actually put it in the video. I've had a few requests for that, so stand by. So, polished up the frets, oiled the board. Of course, we always do that. Cleaned and wiped down the entire guitar. Time to put the pick guard back on. I had a comment from a guy, why do you take the pick guard off when you're doing a restring and setup? Because if I'm going to clean the guitar, you know how much crap is under there? Nobody ever takes that stuff off. Sorry about that. I had my phone muted, but I didn't. Yeah, clean under there. There's no reason not to. It only takes a minute. You're going to wipe the whole guitar down and leave all the crap that has built up underneath there? No, I don't think so. I don't think so. There, you saw how long it took. Easy peasy, nice and easy, nice and clean, nice and clean. Got the frets are all polished up and nice and smooth. Before we move on to restringing, and this is actually part of restringing, in my opinion, each nut slot and each saddle I want to be lubed. Right? How do we do that? Yeah, tune it lube. It's just, you know, you can get that stuff anywhere. I see a lot of guys put pencil in there. I do that sometimes on acoustic guitars. I just put a little dollop on the bench so that I can get at it with a toothpick. Always about that much comes out, and that's about 100 times too much. And once it's out, you can't put it back in. Pisses me off. I hate waste. I just used enough for probably 50 guitars. So you just get a little dollop on the end of your toothpick, and just a little dab in each saddle valley. And if you think it doesn't matter, well, it does. It does, and this should be part of restringing. And then a little bit in each nut slot. And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. I really only loaded the toothpick one time and then shoved a little bit in each saddle valley and each nut slot. And that's it. So you see that big glob there. And no, I can't save it. I've tried. By tomorrow, by later today, it'll turn into out exposed to the air that you can't reuse it. But I digress. Anyway, that's the first part of restringing. Now, point of interest, if you're doing your own Les Paul at home and you want to restring it, make sure you orient your saddle. Put it down the way it's going to go back on the guitar. If you don't, then get some magnifiers and you can look at which saddle. If you get it mixed up and you can't remember which way it went, you can look at the saddles and you'll see striations from the wound strings and the wire strings. But usually the low E, the bass side, is going to be bigger than the other one. So we're putting 10s on this, which are Ernie Balls, 46 to 10. You take your stop bar, right, and you lay it down and orient it the way that it's going to be on the guitar, sort of, and you load it with the strings, thusly. And I am taking the time to show you all this because many of you have seen it, I know, but I'm doing it because I had some requests. How do I restring my own Les Paul? I should know how to do that. Yeah, you absolutely should know how to restring your own instrument. But you can screw some things up if you're not careful and you don't pay attention, and then you go, oh, all I did was put new strings on my guitar and now it doesn't play right. That's because you probably took the tension off the neck, or you didn't get the saddles oriented right, or the stop bar is too far down. And this is an interesting one, just so you know. If you take all this off and wipe and clean up the guitar, guess what? You're turning these and you're turning the saddle, the bridge posts. So when you put them back on, it isn't going to be where it was when you started. That's why I tell you, if you don't know how to set up your guitar, change one string at a time. So if you were doing it on the guitar, this would stay on there. The saddle and bridge assembly would be on there. You take off one string at a time, run it through, right? That way you're not changing a whole bunch of stuff. So this is where our string is going to wrap. Measure it to the next post, put a bend in it. This is for a Gibson Les Paul. String goes through this way, not down through that way, right? Pay attention to your stop bar, because it's until you get the first string on, it's going to try to flop off. Stop at the bend that you just measured and start your wraps. Your first wrap is going to go above the string hole, and as that wrap comes around, your next and all successive wraps go below the string hole. So the first wrap above, all successive wraps below. The neatness counts. You don't want a big loop in it or anything like that. And all you do is get it up to tension, right? You can tell that we probably put that down too close. Yep. All you want to do is get it up to tension. You're not tuning it yet. Bend it down. Cut it off and leave a couple of inches on there, because if you have to take these strings off and then restring it again if you made a mistake, you're going to thank me for leaving that extra bit on there, because you're going to need it to restring it back through there. I don't do that, but I have made mistakes and I have cursed myself, because once you cut them off close, they're almost impossible to put back on if you have to take them off again. And let's face it, mistakes happen. This is the A. Bend it, cut it, leave a little extra. You snip that off and we're all done. Now, I'm going to put the rest of them on. Also, pay close attention that don't start reaming it down and putting tension on it until you know it is seated in the saddle. With these kind, as you're doing this, you're paying attention to wrapping it up here at this end, and the string is hanging over here by the side. So make sure it's in and seated in the saddle. So stand by while I get the rest of them on. Okay, once you get all the strings on, a couple of things you really got to pay attention to. First, tune it up, get it to pitch. Now, regardless of where everything is at, stretch your strings. And this does a couple of things. You hold your thumb up here at the first fret and just middle of the board towards the body, just give it a tug. What it does is it seats it in the nut slot. Even though you're holding it here, it will still seat it there, and it seats it into the saddle, your string. Get it set. And they should go flat because you just stretched them a little bit. Tune back up the pitch, or whatever tuning you're using. Now, when I first got this guitar and I was going through this exercise of just tuning it, I kept hearing tink, kink, kink every time I was tuning up some of the wire strings. That means they were getting stuck on the saddle or they were getting stuck in the nut. It's not happening anymore because we lubed these points. Strings move back and forth over these 2 points here, and if you don't get them smoothly moving back and forth, that's where strings will break right there. Sometimes there, but usually that's where they break on a Les Paul, right there, because they get hung up. So now we go back to final setup, which is, let's make sure our neck relief is where I like it. I don't know if it's going to be, but we're going to find out. I think it's a little loose. And remember, we'd already put one little tug on it before we started. I think I'm going to put one more little tug on it. Just a bit. And that will probably be all it needs. And then recheck. I'm looking for 12 thousandths. Just to kiss at the 7th fret. And that's standard. Yeah, no. Much better. That little tug, it wasn't even a 16th of a turn on that truss rod. That's the sign of a well-built instrument. It's a Gibson Les Paul. Come on. Now we're going to tune to pitch and get dead set tuning. I just want to double check where our intonation is. Oh, I like that. I got stabbed by one of those strings. Dead on. I love that. Now, this is our intonation setting here. If they were off, we would have to adjust our saddles forward or back, depending on whether it was sharp or flat. I'm going to cut these off before I stab myself again. The only reason I left them on there was to illustrate to you, if you make a mistake, you want to be able to reuse the strings. restring it, do whatever you got to do. It's always the wire ones that get you when you least expect it. Okay, beautiful instrument. Where is our string action? That's fine tuning, and it's critical. We know our intonation is set. We know our neck relief is set. Now we can do our string height and our pickup height. Where are we? And I just guessed at this, so let's see where my guess was. Oh, dead on. I'm going to lower the bass side slightly. I'm going to bring up the treble side slightly. So we're at 5/64 on the bass side on a Les Paul. I want it just below 5/64, and I want to see the 4/64 line on the treble side. So we're going to lower it on the tune-o-matic, and we're going to raise it on the tune-o-matic. Now, every time you do that, tune it back up to pitch. Have real tension on the strings, because it will affect your measurement. If you measure it when it's slack, the string is slack or flat, it won't, and then you tune it back up to pitch, it will change that measurement. It won't read exactly the same, and I like it to be exact. So we were at 5. We are now we're splitting the difference between 4/64 and 5/64. It's showing the 4/64 line, and I like that on a Les Paul. We're right on the 4 there. I want it just a little bit higher. Perfect. So the string is actually just showing the 4/64 line on the treble side. And this instrument should bear that measurement. That's lower than I would set a Stratocaster at. Tune it back up to pitch after making that adjustment, and then we're going to check it one more time just to make sure it's where I like it. And every time you bring those strings up, it's going to make the note sharp. Every time you drop them, it's going to make it flat, because you're either increasing or decreasing the tension on the string. Double check one last time. Perfect. Under 5/64, dead on 4/64. I like that. That's how I set a Les Paul up. Now, here's where you keep your fingers crossed. You have to check your break angle from the strings where they come through the stop bar, and the break angle is that angle that goes up and then over the saddle. It has to be acute enough to give it tension, but if it's too acute, in other words, if the stop bar is too close to the body, the string can actually touch the bridge, and you don't want that. It just has to clear it. And all you need is a paper to slide in there. If it's too high, you won't have enough break angle. The angle will be too obtuse. You want it to be just acute enough that it doesn't interfere right there, because that will also cause strings to break if it actually makes contact with the bridge. When you bend strings, they're gonna contact there, and that'll be a failure point. Last thing, we did our neck relief, our intonation, our string height. Made sure our stop bar break angle over the saddles is good. We lubed all of our string points where they're takeoff points on the saddle and the nut. This is always the overlooked adjustment. This one's too far away, this one's too close. I want to bring this one up. Drop this one slightly. Five 30-seconds. On the bass side, still needs to come up. If you're too far away, you're losing power. Your magnetic field is too stretched out between the pickup, the magnetic pickup, and the string. If you're too close, you're choking that magnetic field. You want it right where it needs to be, in that sweet spot. 5 30-seconds, 1/16 on the treble side. Too far away. Perfect. Still too far away. Perfect. I want my feeler gauge to clear both posts. Yeah. And remember, if you had to move that side up or down to, a fair amount, it could affect the other side. So double check. Perfect. This guitar is ready to play. Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. It's a beautiful instrument. It needed some more cleanup than usual, but not terrible. I mean, it wasn't a restoration cleanup. Yes, pull that off and clean underneath it. Don't be lazy. 1, 2 screws, in and out, 30 seconds. Polish the frets, oiled the board. I actually took his knobs off. These were not clocked correctly. I like them all to point at 10 when they're full. This one was at like 4. This one was at like 2. So I clocked his knobs right. We tightened up his 3-way selector switch. We did adjust the truss rod. We did adjust the pickup height. We did adjust the string height. Thankfully, the only thing that didn't need to be adjusted, believe it or not, was the intonation. It was dead on. So she's a beauty, and it's ready to go back to the client. It's Blackjack with 396 Guitars. Remember, if you dig what I'm doing, like and subscribe, and please share. Share with your friends. Come and see me if you need your guitar fixed.